Hello everyone, my name is Brandy Martinez and this is my presentation for AEP 855 Educational Leadership Module 1. Okay, so a little bit about me. I am 26 years old. I have an almost 2-year-old little toddler and I have a baby on the way. Our baby is due in July. I'm going to wait to find out the gender, which is very exciting but also nerve-wracking. I have a very well-fed cat. You see him down there, the orange little guy, and I enjoy working up a sweat at the gym and spending time with my family. So a little bit about me professionally. This is going to be my 5th year teaching. I first student taught in 1st grade and then I moved up to 5th grade and I taught there for 2 years. That jump was really scary for me because I am a little bit on the petite side. So I was really scared to go into 5th grade where kids were going to be way taller than me. And then after those 2 years, I decided, hey, why don't I just make it a little harder on myself and move to 6th grade where they're going to be even taller than me. So I moved up to the middle school and I have loved teaching here ever since. I currently teach computer applications and I have around 250 students. So there were some challenges teaching during the pandemic. The biggest one that I found was the student absences. So I actually see my students every other day as opposed to every day, and every time I had a student absent, it just made it so much harder to catch them up because they were missing out on so much instruction from me. So it was even harder because they didn't have the technology, like they weren't able to take their laptops home. We are 1-to-1 laptop and they weren't able to take them home. So it was just really difficult for me to be able to get students caught up because they really had no way to catch things up for me. Another thing that was difficult was that some students were remote whenever we were, when we came back from quarantine, and those students were really not as active as I wanted them to be, and it was hard to keep them active because I had to talk to them and kind of impact them through the screen, and it was just a difficult thing to do. Okay, so next, some things that I've learned about myself. The first is that I feel like I am a problem solver. I am the computer applications teacher, and I didn't get this job because I have like a degree in computer science or I'm into all of this stuff, but I love technology, and anytime I need something or I need to do something, I feel like I find a way to solve my problems. I feel like this is a lot to do with the fact that I'm a first-generation student, and my parents when I was growing up couldn't always help me with my schoolwork or with the language, so I kind of had to find a way to make things happen for myself and solve the problems that I had. The second is that I try to keep the humor and positivity alive in situations. In our field, sometimes we can get bogged down by so many negative things or sad things that we see happen at school. So keeping humor, keeping positivity, trying to keep the morale high is something I feel is very important. The next is that I'm able to set boundaries. This is something that I've been working on probably since my first year of teaching, and something that I think so many teachers need to work on. And that's, setting clear boundaries of what you will allow and what you will not allow and how you will spend your time, because we could all spend time at school forever and ever and ever and get so many things done. But sometimes you have to take care of yourself, and that's something that I have really learned, especially in becoming a mom this past year. The next is that I can adapt to situations quickly. So I also want to add in there quickly and in a positive manner, because, we are always getting told what to do and how to do it and when to do it. And some people will not want to do those things, and some people will do them and get them done right. And that is the type of person that I want to be always. So in the reading, there were 3 different mindsets that were talked about. I feel like I can agree with all of them. The first, all students can learn, that in itself, that statement is so important. If you are in education and you don't feel like all students can learn, you probably should not be in education. And the growth versus fixed mindset is something that I think all schools have really taken to, because it is so important. And showing students, showing kids, showing teachers that they can improve their mindset by just believing is very, very is something that is just so impactful. The second is that teacher collaboration over isolation is also important. Kind of what I grab from that is that it takes a village, and the village must be happy. So it is important for us to teach our kids, but it takes all of us to teach them, and we all have to be happy. We have to collaborate with each other. We have to take a little bit of time to get to know each other, because if we do isolate each other, then we're not really going to get anything done, and we're not going to be happy when we're getting it done. And the third is that happiness is a choice. It's important to choose to be optimistic. So every day when my students come into my classroom, I tell them that it's a beautiful day to be alive. And most of the time they're like rolling their eyes at me like, yeah, Miss Martinez, whatever, sure it is. And, I tell them, well, it can be a beautiful day. We just got to make it one. I know obviously for some students that's harder, for some adults that's harder, but it really is a choice. And that's something that I feel like in my 26 years of life, it's taken me a little bit of time to really figure out that yes, it is a choice. I can choose to be happy every day. Even if I'm sad or whatever the case may be, I can still have joy in my heart, and that is very important. So there were 5 different dispositions that we read about as well. I feel like I agree with all of them. Also, being confident, being a risk taker, and being decisive when you take those risks, having a sense of humor, being empathetically assertive, and then being a learner. All of these dispositions are extremely important. Being confident, all the leaders that I know of in my building are confident. They take risks and are not afraid to fail. They have a sense of humor. They provide us with that safe and inviting environment because we know that they can joke around with us, and they don't take themselves too seriously, and they're empathetically assertive. They understand different perspectives, and they're continuously learning. I think that last one, being a continuous learner, is something that is very important as well. So there were 3 practices that we read about. The first was focusing and prioritizing, so making sure to prioritize important goals and objectives. The second was examining feedback and data. This one kind of circles back to the first, because if you are examining that feedback and data, then you're able to aid in making the school better, and then in turn probably going back to your goals and objectives, which is to make the school better. The third is emotional intelligence. This is something that our district talks about all the time. Our superintendent has coined the phrase EII or EEI. Every encounter is important. EEII, sorry. Because every encounter is important to an effective leader. And, in giving us that little tagline of every encounter is important, it kind of makes us feel like we're all leaders in our district, and making sure to kind of think about the way that we are interacting with each other and with all stakeholders. We also read about the 8 principles of ethical leadership: personal courage, having public interest ahead of yourself, displaying self-control, self-discipline and integrity, task and employee-centeredness, recognizing talent, requiring high ethics from everyone, sensitivity and understanding, and inclusiveness. All of these, once again, very important. All are marks of effective leaders, because we have to stand up for what is right. We have to put the needs of others, and whenever we put the needs of others before our own, it kind of builds us up as well. Building respect is essential so that other people can trust you when they respect you. Focusing on the needs of students and the teachers, not just making, everything about the students, because when we focus on the teachers, then that also builds up morale, and then it's going to also, in turn, help us with our students. Recognizing talent. This is something that I think is so important, because when your leaders recognize other leaders, then they're just building everyone up, and, it would just be the greatest thing ever to have a whole entire school building full of leaders. Then you just get so many things done. Requiring high ethics from everyone, holding everyone to the same standards, and holding them to high standards. Number 7, sensitivity and understanding. So it's important to practice equity in the community, making sure that we keep equity at the forefront of our actions. And inclusiveness, making sure everyone feels valued and a part of the organization, so that the performance can increase. Okay, so as I was kind of reflecting on myself and reading through that research, I found myself thinking of a lot of instances where I had embodied a lot of those characteristics of an effective leader, or how I've developed some of those mindsets, dispositions, and principles throughout my teaching career by watching other leaders or watching other really great teachers. I feel like the one that I need to think about the most is focus and what I prioritize, because I tend to become fixated on small details that don't really bear too much importance, and then I become overwhelmed because I'm not reaching my objective because I'm focusing on the little things. So I know this is a skill that I can develop with discipline and practice, and just reflecting on the fact that I need to develop that skill in itself is a really great thing for me. So, knowing about all of these different mindsets, dispositions, and ethical practices allow me to understand what I need to develop. All of these characteristics help staff feel valued and safe, which in turn is going to raise the morale and allow students to feel like they're coming to a school that is positive and uplifting. So, it impacts all of us. It impacts students, it impacts adults, it impacts everyone. So this assignment correlated to the learning objective by having us reflect and critique our mindsets, dispositions, and ethical principles. Through this reflection, we can become better leaders, and in turn, we can create opportunities for success in our schools. My relevance statement, I feel like this assignment was relevant to my learning because it allowed me to reflect on my leadership skills. I knew I possessed some leadership skills, but I had never really taken the time to figure out which ones, and I was also able to learn the skills and characteristics that I still need to develop. My personal reflection, I feel like this assignment allowed me to realize my potential. It also made me think of the leaders in my building and how many of these characteristics they really actually possess. I know they all had to take a class like this, so it's very clear to me that they had to work on developing those skills. So I know that it's definitely possible for me to become a leader in my building or in my community. I'm really excited to develop my own skills so that I can positively impact my school, and so that I can also in turn one day develop another future leader. These are the references that I used. Thank you so much for listening to me today.